All right, we're live, and thanks and welcome everybody. I'm Johnny B from UpsideDownDrafting.com. I got a special guest today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Justin Freeman. He's a contributor to NumberFire.com. He's a dad. He's got some kids, obviously. He was a former offensive lineman at Duke University, and about 5 different scheming coordinators in his time, including Bill O'Brien, who's now obviously with the Houston Texans. So very interesting guy I'm dealing with who, is an offensive line type of guy. He's a sympathizer, as he says, he's a Washington Redskin fan. And so, Justin, thanks for joining us on the show.
Johnny B, thanks for having me, man. I'm really happy to be a part of this.
Well, this is a tremendous honor for me too. I'm just so excited that you're so involved with the youth sports too, and I can't wait for you to share in the next 10 minutes here to the folks listening what this is all about, because you got a great fundraising opportunity for No Kid Hungry. And so please tell us and our audience what's going on with this fantasy football idea of yours, the template for 2018. So go ahead and share that with everybody.
Yeah, sure, man. So ever since I've gotten into fantasy, pretty hardcore kind of over the last 3 or 4 years, I think a lot of people have kind of seen their interest kind of climb over the last several years. I've just always wanted to sort of strip away the narratives that go around all the stories and all the feelings we have about certain players. And so when I learned that there was a world of projections out there, that really kind of hit home for me, because I'm just like, well, if we can sort of quantify those feelings and put them in some sort of format where, there does spit out some sort of numerical value behind what that feeling looks like on paper, that's a good thing. So what I did was created a projections skeleton, like a template, and I put that out for everyone to use. And I'll just kind of show that with you guys. And here it is. So what you can see here is that we've got several tabs along the spreadsheet, but basically the ones I want to show you today, let's see here. We'll just start with the Arizona Cardinals, and this is generally speaking what this spreadsheet looks like, okay? You start with a list of assumptions down this left-hand side, right? Okay, you've got your players, and then we're going to project out first and foremost here in column D, the rushing market share of those players. So the one good thing about this is make sure that your total is never higher or lower than 100%, because there's obviously 100% of rushes to go around for the team. Okay. And so, if it gives you a chance to go in and say, for example, let's say you're super high on David Johnson, but you also thought that, rookie Chase Edmonds might also have a really good year. I couldn't type in, say, a 75% rushing share for David Johnson and then like a 40% share for Chase Edmonds, because now I'm in the negative. So it just kind of keeps me in check to be able to say exactly what I think is going to happen, overall within the picture of the offense. And so I would set those projections perhaps a little bit more reasonably. Maybe David Johnson is going to be at 65% and Chase Edmonds maybe closer to like 15 or 20%. Okay. So, type in those numbers, and then over here on the right spits out the actual projections. Okay. And these projections are based on scoring systems that we enter within other place in the spreadsheet. So based on based on the Cardinals' projected runs for the year, which you have an opportunity to change that as well. It's going to say that 65% of 456 team runs is going to be 296 rushes for David Johnson.
This is awesome.
Yeah, and that's just sort of to give you just one big picture view of what one team might look like. And but how do we get 65%? Where does that even come from? Well, if we go down here to rushing market share by depth chart, just provided some historical backwards looking information on what the Cardinals have done over the past 3 seasons. So the highest rated running back in 2015 got only 43% of the team's rushes. In 2016, which was David Johnson's big breakout year, 74%. And then last year, nobody got more than 30% of the Cardinals' rushes. If you remember, there was sort of a revolving door there in the Cardinals' backfield. So,
sure.
We have to how do we take that information and say, what's the most likely thing to happen? So we obviously think that, David Johnson, what could he reasonably do this year? Is he going to be as high as the 74% that he received in 2016? Maybe that's a little lofty. I tend to like to hedge my projections quite a bit. I don't want to imagine that the most extreme outcome is going to occur. I want to find the most likely outcome that's going to occur. So, imagine the NFL season replicates itself 1 billion times. Okay, within that 1 billion times that it happens, David Johnson's going to get hurt and miss a majority of the season in several of those, right? Okay, and in a couple other of those scenarios, David Johnson may have closer to 80% rushing. It may just be ridiculous. So you got to find sort of where's that sweet spot. We're talking about 1 in a billion type of thing here, but only one thing is going to happen in 2018 for David Johnson. And so we're going to try to pick the most likely thing, which to me, I try to never give a running back more than say 65 to 68% rushing market share, just to kind of keep it in check. So the real opportunity for more volume comes in projecting more team total runs. And I do have another portion of the spreadsheet called Coaching Tendencies, okay, that takes a look at OC data and head coaching data to project out exactly how many runs each team's going to have. So we're not pulling these out of thin air.
We got to look at the Houston Texans, because you're talking about Bill O'Brien and a guy who loves deep playbooks. Let's pull that one up real quick.
For sure, man. Bill O'Brien, he was a great coach. I got to play under him while I was at Duke. My freshman year there was his last year before he took on a job with the Patriots as a quality control guy, and then climbed his way up. But since he is also the play caller, if you look here, you'll see that over on the right-hand side, he's listed twice, once as the head coach and once as the offensive coordinator, okay? And over the past 3 years, they've run a total of 1,091 plays in 15, 1,040 in 2016, and 973 in 2017. So they've kind of slowly decreased their pace, which you may not have perceived given some of the acquisitions they made. Deshaun Watson, he thought that they would have probably been running more plays. Certainly not such a steep drop off, if anything. And then if you look at the run pass ratio, they've slowly gotten more and more run heavy over the past 3 seasons. So we do use a blended average to project out how many total plays. So in this case, 1,017 total plays, of which 456 we project will be runs and 561 we project as passes. So if we just go back over to our Houston spreadsheet, our Houston tab here, you'll see that those same numbers are there. 1,017 total plays, 561 passes, 456 rushes. So, and then we're just going to divvy those out. So the first thing is divvying out the workload, and then we're going to project out, what the efficiency rates are, how many yards a rush a guy is going to get, touchdown rate he's going to get, et cetera. So you have everything here is fully manipulatable. And so you have your chance to not only divvy out who you think is going to get the targets and who's going to get the rushes, but you also have the opportunity to say, Lamar Miller, who's a 4.3 yards per carry average kind of guy, I think he's going to crush it this year with a full season of Deshaun Jackson. We know running quarterbacks open up the rushing offense. So I'm gonna hook Miller up with a 4.8 yards per carry, which will probably end up boosting his rushing yardage total. So, those are the things you can do. It gives you a chance to still make your claims and put your takes out there and say everything that you want to say, all while, keeping it somewhat realistic, which is what I like about projections.
Well, this is awesome, and it's all for the No Kid Hungry program. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired all this, Justin?
Yeah, so, it's a pretty in-depth spreadsheet. It took me quite a while to put it together, and it's still an ongoing process to maintain depth charts and all that stuff. But I'm going to do this for myself, whether anybody else benefits or not. So I'm like, why don't I just give this out, to anybody who wants it? But I'm not just going to give it out, for free. There's a lot of hard work there. So, and I'm not interested in making any money off of it. So I was like, well, what if I ask everybody for a $10 donation to No Kid Hungry, and I'll hook you up with a spreadsheet? And so I did it last year for the first time, and I got it going again this year. And last year we raised over $1,200 for No Kid Hungry, and which is a great organization. They specialize in trying to prevent and stop childhood hunger within the United States. I know a lot of people want their money to stay at home, and so this gives you a great opportunity. You don't really realize just how much nutrition makes an impact in a kid's life, but and especially if you come from a place where you've not had to worry about where your next meal is coming from, it's really hard to appreciate it. But obviously I hadn't missed a whole lot of meals in my day, but that it's a really good organization, and happy to support it.
Wow, this is great, and so happy that you're sharing it. So I got to tell you a funny story real quick, because my friends and I have always had this tradition where we'll make our projections, our predictions, our rankings, if you will, for the season. We put them in an envelope, mail it to ourselves, and then in December compare notes, and over dinner, and the winner would obviously get a free meal. But I always thought that was fun. I know there's a lot of professional websites out there that you get to see experts do this sort of ranking and projections, but now can the average guy participate in this? How fun is this?
Yeah, exactly. So not only can you get this pretty cool spreadsheet and create your own projections that you can use in your own leagues throughout the year, but you can also submit your projections to me. I'm hosting a projections competition this year, and you submit it to me by email. I've got a link on my Twitter page that'll show you how to get there. You will submit your preseason projections on a points per game basis for the top 150 players in the NFL, which I have defined based on average draft position, according to Fantasy Football Calculator's draft position. And once you're there, you can submit those. I'm gonna give out awards for whoever has the most accurate projections throughout the course of the year. So similar to the way like Fantasy Pros does for in-season rankings, I'm doing something similar for preseason projections. And it takes a lot to sort of nail those projections. There's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, projections are almost intended to be wrong by design. There's natural variance that we know is going to occur. So you'll be able to go to this site here. I think you've got pulled up here the site for signing up for the template. All you got to do is email me a receipt for your $10 donation to No Kid Hungry. And then here is the site for the projections competition. All of this is available by my pinned tweet on Twitter. Go check that out, and you'll see how this works. You'll see, we're taking the top 20 quarterbacks, the top 50 running backs, top 60 receivers, and top 20 tight ends. That totals up to 150. And you're going to submit a projection on each one of those players. Okay. And like I said, this spreadsheet here can help you out to do that. And we're going to go with PPR scoring. And then at the bottom of the page, you're going to find a registration form. So just sign up there, send me the information that I need to keep in contact with you, and I'll send more precise details as we get closer to that deadline. So obviously, as depth charts change, as news breaks over the course of the off season, our projections are going to change. They're not designed to be stable forever. So, we want to be sure that we adjust with those. And so the rankings the projections aren't due until September, I think September 1st, and, submit those then, and best of luck to everybody. I'm going to try to win this thing myself.
Wow, this is pretty cool, man. I'm telling you, I'm excited about it. I'm happy to donate and put some money towards this cause, and we really appreciate you doing this. So a couple of things I wanted to ask you, I think just off to the side, where you wrote an article on Tyrell Williams. And I think the title of that one on your number fire was "Should you be buying Tyrell Williams over Mike Williams in fantasy football?" So these sort of questions are fun as you even look at your projection game here and in this charity thing. But tell me a little bit about stuff like this, where you got so many choices like this. Especially your article was really good, by the way. Thank you for Thank you for that.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, well, and that's a great thing about projections is it sort of forces you into having takes on one player or another. Some of which would be kind of consensus with everyone, and then some will sort of stand out. And it's helped me in the past. It's also hurt me on some others, but like Tyrell and Mike Williams is a prime example. So Hunter Henry goes down, and there's potential targets available. So how do we process where those targets end up? And projection modeling certainly helps for that. And to me, I really want Mike Williams to be a thing. Like I loved watching him play at Clemson. He was a dynamic, fun player to watch. He's like the prototypical, like, go get it receiver and everything. And, he had that horrible injury. And then that sort of led to, was it a back injury, I believe, last year? Where it forced him to miss some time. And listen, if you just look at the list of rookie receivers that were taken in the first round that got less than 50 targets in year one, it is a terrible, terrible list. It is a list of, oh yeah, I barely remember that guy.
Right.
And it's just like over and over again, just these first round busts, because that first season is so important for establishing that player's floor going forward. And Mike Williams, through no fault of his own, gets hurt. But that's just somebody who, in general, I'm wanting to fade. And then I think Tyrell Williams, we've seen it before from him. Now, granted, it was a Keenan Allen injury that opened up that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're saying like the best case for Mike Williams is that he could potentially be as good as Tyrell Williams. Like, to me, that's kind of like where the take comes from, so why not just take the guy who already is that good? So
right. I got Tyrell, I think ranked as my 59 overall. And that's going to be a lot of fun, man, just to kind of see how things shake up. And especially with all these rookies, last year I got a chance to play at Scott Fish, and it was so much fun to throw a bunch of darts at rookies. And it was Evan Ingrams, it was Juju, it was Kamara. I had this team of rookies. And it's funny how, in the early parts of the summer, people say, well, we've overinflated the rookies and whatnot. And all of a sudden during the season, you see something different. So I think the rookies are going to be my next question. How do you foresee people ranking, projecting the rookies in this game of yours here?
Right, because career averages are important for projecting players. I mean, that's probably the best place to start when you're projecting efficiency for any player. Like, if I'm projecting Lamar Miller, I'm going to project him pretty close to his career average. He's got a lot of rushes under his belt. There's no need for me to try to reinvent the wheel and try to get cute with what I think he's going to do. So, rookies pose a completely different dynamic. So I tend to project them fairly low for efficiency metrics, unless it is like a true prodigal person like Saquon, So, that guy comes in. I'm assuming he can be at least the league average, rusher, from an efficiency standpoint. Obviously, he's going to get loaded down with volume.
Mm-hmm.
But, so how do we treat those? They all depend, I think. And I think it gives you a good opportunity, in that situation to put your opinions of that team's offensive line or offensive situation, sort of melt that in. Like, let's take Rashad Penny, who's in Seattle now and presumably has the backfield to himself. There may be some people who disagree with that, but Seattle puts a first-round pick in a running back. We have to assume they're going to use him that way. So, Seattle's offensive line has been terrible, right? So how do we project him to do much of anything? With a guy like him, I'm going to project him maybe closer to the 25th percentile among running backs in efficiency metrics. So, and I try to put all that data there within the spreadsheet. It's kind of handy right there. We know that, for running back rushes, 3.7 yards per carry puts you at the 25th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll probably project something close to that for him. Even though he's obviously a good player, I think he was the NCAA leading rusher last year, or either second, something like that. But that's the only way I know to do it, is to take a little bit about what you know about the player, and then a little bit about what you know about the team, and try to mesh those things. And like I said, the projection is always about trying to find the most probable outcome.
Well, and that's the fun of it too. I get a lot of questions, from my Twitter or my website on, hey, who do you think here? Or give me some advice here. And I think what I usually tell the listeners, and I tell a lot of my people, is the fun of playing fantasy football, since we've all played it for so many years, and even the younger guys that haven't. It's doing your own research. And I think with your spreadsheet and what you've come up here with this game that you have, and it's all for charity and it's a wonderful cause. I think this is what's truly going to pull out guys that are going to do their own homework. And I always say there's nothing better than when your gut says to go get a guy and he comes through and produces, when it was your own thinking. You didn't have to ask a buddy. You didn't have to ask your Uncle Frank or different people. It's when you come up with your own notions and you hit, boy, there's no better feeling out there. And so I guess what I have to ask you next is because I'm more of a zero RB upside down guy, what do you think of these satellite backs that are going around? Like, for instance, I'm a big Nahem Hines fan, just like the next guy out there, and I think he's getting overblown right now. But the Corey Clements, obviously the Kamara effect last year, when the team said, we got to help Drew Brees, he's getting older, we need to come get a guy, and they moved up to the draft. Give me some Tariq Cohens. Give me some of these satellite guys that are in the backfield now. How are they going to look? Because I'm going to certainly give them a higher projection this year on what I saw last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm actually working on a piece for Number Fire right now to look at some macro stuff that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years, and just like which direction is the league heading in. And the overwhelming thing I'm noticing right now is that there's becoming like less differentiation between a team's RB1 and the team's RB2. Like the RB2s are starting to like really encroach on that rushing share, and not only that, but obviously targets as well. So these, to me, there has maybe never been a better year for zero RB than there is this year. Like there's just tons and tons of reaction that's going on right now, because last year was such a beneficial rushing year, right? Mm-hmm. We had so many factors that contributed to that. We had bad quarterback play across the league. We had some of the stars, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Deshaun Watson gets hurt, even guys who like can maintain a stable offense like Carson Palmer got hurt. We just had a really rough year for passing the football, and unpredictably so. So naturally, what does everyone do this year? I think there's something like 10 of the top 12 people getting drafted are running backs. Mm-hmm. And, this is, just a year or two after everyone was taking receivers in the first round. So I think there's never been a better situation, because now if you were to go receiver in the first couple, 3 rounds even, you got a really good chance to differentiate your lineup. And that's really what you want, is something that's different than what everyone else is doing. And there are plenty of, the supply of running backs is steadily growing. If you look at how many running backs were listed as startable according to like weekly rankings, that number is grown every year. So mm-hmm. There's just more and more running backs cycling through, and part of that's injury, and part of that's just backfield makeup, and part of it's we're just not that great at projecting running backs. We think we know what the backfield's going to look like, and we don't. We're much better at receivers, projecting what they're going to be like. So for me, like, I value more certainty, and mm-hmm. I can promise you that the outlook for Antonio Brown and OBJ and Julio and those guys, that's a much more certain possibility than some of the earlier round running backs. And I'll value that, and I'm going to try to double down and triple down on the receivers and Gronk as well. I'm definitely high on Gronk this year. Definitely like him way better than where he's going in drafts.
Take me through real quick, since you're a Washington guy. One of my all-time favorite tight ends for Redskins right now is Jordan Reed. He just can't stay on the field. What happens if a guy actually stays on the field with a new quarterback who Alex Smith, right, coming in, throwing it to him, who loves the tight end play? Obviously, he's got Vernon Davis there too, but I'm high on Jordan Reed this year only because of the quarterback. What are your thoughts on that? Are people going to overproject him, or are they going to still just start saying, it's still Jordan Reed, we don't know his injury history, presents itself like it does? How would you yourself as a fan project him?
Jordan Reed's got the biggest discount going in fantasy football right now, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's strictly due to injury. And granted, injury should be baked into everyone's cost. Think about everyone's cost bakes in everything about them, what their ceiling is, what their floor is, what their injury rate is, what their bust rate is, So all these things go into that. And I think we're possibly overreacting to Jordan Reed's injury history. Yeah, it is obviously one of the least predictable things out there. It's really easy to tell yourself a story that Jordan Reed gets one more concussion and he has to retire. It's really easy to say he's got weak ankles or whatever. And there is no doubt that Jordan Reed is an injury-prone player. But when he is healthy, he is clearly an elite-level tight end. There's no doubt about it. And Alex Smith coming in definitely does not hurt his fantasy situation. So I love Jordan Reed as, what's he going in 9th round, 10th round right about now? And so you could do a lot worse. And the great thing about the tight end position is most people are going to miss on tight end. If you don't have a Gronk or a Kelsey or an Ertz, guess what? You're kind of just with everybody else. So, why not draft Reed? And if he doesn't work out or he does get hurt, well, screw it. You're going to pick a guy up off waivers who's just as good as one you could have drafted late round anyway. So I like the move. I think he's a great person to draft. We'll obviously know more as he goes through training camp. So keep an eye on him, obviously, but he's definitely a guy I'm high on.
Yeah, no, I mean, right now on my list, he's number 12, and it's like that's almost criminal. A guy like that should not be 12 on anybody's list, but that's just how it is. We're still in the month of June as we get through. So I guess one other question I have for what we got going on here on not only your spreadsheet, your projections, just your overall feeling. How are you going to tell your listeners and the folks that are going to do this, which I think you're going to get a really good response, by the way. Everyone's going to take on to this in a great fashion. But how do they prepare for something like this other than the spreadsheet? I mean, what sort of advice would you give folks? Obviously, you're a contributor to Numberfire. Maybe talk us through that a little bit, articles, things like that. How would you prepare?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for this competition in particular, you're basically taking a snapshot of the way you feel at a specific moment in time, right before the preseason. And that's the way you're going to draft as well. But the thing to keep in mind when you're playing in your season-long leagues is that things are going to change on a weekly basis. And I just have the assumption that I'm wrong at all times. If you operate from that point of view, it certainly makes it a lot easier to adjust throughout the season. So, you got those guys who you took in the last several rounds. They're your flyers. They're the guys you believe in. But, let's say you took Malcolm Mitchell in one of the later rounds and you were big that like Malcolm Mitchell is going to be the second or third receiver in the Patriots backfield, receiving core rather. And as long as Edelman's out, then you're loving you some Jordan Matthews. Well, in game one, Jordan Matthews doesn't sniff the field, right? Or, between now and then he gets cut. You got to change your thought process. You got to be willing to crawl out of that hole and say, after 1 week, the Jordan Matthews things, it's over. We're going on to somebody else, somebody who's actually on the field. Because, you got to be on the field to catch the ball. So, sure. That's my biggest piece of advice. Assume you're wrong and then adjust on a weekly basis. But for the projections competition, I think there's a lot of opportunity for somebody to win this thing who can be very realistic with their projections. You're going to get dinged for not hitting on every player precisely. But what you want is you kind of want to be down on some, you want to miss down on some, you want to mess up on some, so that you kind of balance out. You should have kind of a 50-50 split if you're doing it right. The goal is not to hit these on the head, but to have, a small enough area where you can compete and win this thing.
And if your gut tells you what to do, then you go out and do it, right? Can you walk us through that multiplier piece on the Excel spreadsheet? How does that work, Justin?
Yeah, exactly. So within the competition, what we're doing is we're placing a multiplier on the error. So let's say, for example, you think that Antonio Brown's going to score 20 PPR points a game. Well, Brown actually scores 23 PPR points a game. Well, you're wrong by 3 points per game, right? Okay. So what we're going to do at that point is take that, what I call the error, okay, and multiply it by a certain factor. Now, I've given each player their own individual factor based on when they were drafted. Okay, well, Antonio Brown being an elite wide receiver, I think I did the first 5 or 6 wide receivers, are all multiplied by 3. So you missed by 3 points. There's a 3-point multiplier. So 3 times 3 is 9. I'm giving you 9 error points for Antonio Brown. And we're going to keep going down the list of players that exact same way, multiplying the difference between their projected that you submitted versus the actual, and then multiplying that difference by some factor for each player. The more prestigious players are given a higher factor, and the sort of fringe players are given a lower factor. So you don't get dinged quite as heavily for missing on, Jordan Matthews, but you do get dinged very highly for missing on Antonio Brown.
This is amazing. Yeah, it's going to be really fun to participate in this as the summer goes through. So why don't you tell the listeners real quick, tell us your Twitter handle. Tell us one more time, when does this start? And I think right now I've already registered, right? So if you're registered right now, you're just in a holding pattern until it starts?
Yeah, so go on the site and register. You can find that on my Twitter feed. I'm at Justin Freeman 18 on Twitter. You'll find it under my pinned tweet. Just go click, and then there's a registration form. Just sign up, and I'll keep you posted with emails as we get closer to time. So that gives me a way to get everybody's email so I can keep you posted as things change. So as you can see there's the pinned tweet. Just make sure you click on that, and you'll be directed to the site in order to sign up. And so it's pretty simple from that point. And obviously, I'm writing for Numberfire this year. It's my first year as a writer, and really enjoying that. And so I'm trying to put out some really good content, and hopefully some things that'll help you win your league. So follow me on Twitter, and I'll be sure to go ahead and get you that fantasy content you need, that thirst. Not quite as good as Uncle Frank, but I'll get you what you need to help win your league, hopefully.
Well, Justin, we've really enjoyed you today. Thank you for all the help on the show and just coming aboard. I appreciate your time. I know you got a little one you got to get back to, and obviously your wife and everything. So just thanks for taking time out of your day to do this. Again, build your own fantasy football projections. I think it's a fantastic idea. That's why I had to have him on the show. Make sure you make your donation. It's $10 to No Kid Hungry. And it's just an amazing spreadsheet that you've put together here as I go through. And what's really cool is I saw a couple guys down below that were on your site as well. It looks like I think it was RotoViz and obviously Josh down here. Josh is an amazing guy, airyards.com. So he's one of my favorite follows. So this is cool. Why don't you tell us one more time real quick about this Donate 50, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, obviously I want to thank those guys out there who are providing free data. Most of the information on your spreadsheet comes from RotoViz, the RotoViz screener. And that link is one that everyone should have bookmarked, because the ability to query on fantasy related things is something that I can't replace any other way. And then I was able to also harvest some of Josh Hermsmeyer's airyards.com. Like you mentioned, Josh is doing some killer work right now on real football analytics and trying to help play calling decisions, which is something that I can't get enough of. And if you donate $50 or more, I'll throw your name on the website. So that's just a way that I can try to encourage more people to donate more to No Kid Hungry. So send me a big receipt, man, and I'll throw your name up there, and would love to have anybody donate anything to that particular organization.
Well, Justin, thank you very, very much again for being on. We're going to get this video out to everybody, and we're going to tweet this around. So be sure and sign up. Have a great rest of the summer, and go Duke, huh?
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Appreciate it, man. Have a great fantasy season.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Okay, Justin. Hey, thank you very much, man.
Oh, thank you. That was pretty cool, man.
That was a lot.
I'm
You
anxious
did
to
great,
see what it's
man.
like.
Fantastic. That was a tremendous job.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll get this out, man. We'll get it started. I'll make sure to send it to all my buddies, and we'll get a good response going. So again, just many thanks. Have a great weekend, and go be with your family now.
For sure, man. Have a good one. Hope the little ones are okay.
All right, see you later, bud.
See you, man.